This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Giff.
And we are here tonight to tempt you.
Ooh.
Tempt? Wow.
This
I'm
is going to be
Brad.
an intriguing, risque show coming up, I think, here.
All right.
The topic for tonight is the TV show Temptation Island.
Put your clothes back on, Gifford.
Sorry.
Which has had a double lifetime. So we are doing 2001, and that is when this show first appeared on the Fox network. And there were 3 seasons of it. Actually, well, it was called Temptation Island 2, I think. Well, maybe they were called Temptation Island 2 and 3, but I think there were 3 seasons, I think. And then that spawned a few other ones, which we might bring up later. But 3 years ago, the USA Network brought it back. And so
Did it really?
It is an old... Oh, yeah, Pete. It is an old show from the year we're talking, but it has also had a new life, which maybe some people have discovered. So that's our topic. But we had mentioned in our previous episodes this month that this was a big year. We called it the year of the wedding. And all 3 of your hosts here got married in 2001. And so since this show is going to be all about couples and whether they could get through the difficult times and the temptation, we thought, why not share our wedding day memories about how things went for us back then?
Fun.
How does that sound?
That sounds great.
All right. So we're going to go in the order in which we each were married. So I'm going to go first because I was married on April 7th, 2001. And we chose that date for a very specific reason. And I will mention it when we get to the end of the show. So another one of those little teasers like Pete likes to do.
Ooh. Oh, I love a good teaser. And this is a good episode for being a tease.
Yes. Anyway, April is a very unpredictable month. And so it turned out to be a very ugly, rainy, and windy day that day. But they say that's good luck, right?
It is.
That's right, Brad.
And I'm still married. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary in Hawaii in March, so it's worked out pretty darn well. But it was very rainy. It was very windy. And the day didn't start off quite the right way. So we were on our way to the church, and we had realized, or maybe we were still in the hotel, I guess, but we had realized, yeah, that's true. Thank you, Giff. You're going to help me out here. That I had the wrong vest. We hadn't noticed when we picked up the tuxes, but I was supposed to have a white vest while everybody else had a black one, and they did not give me the right one. And this Saturday morning, of course, and luckily the store was open, I think, maybe just in the morning. I don't remember how long it was open, but my best man, who was in this group here, actually, I have 2 best men, and they are both right here.
But only one official best man. Thanks, Brad.
Yes, but Pete, I'm getting to you. You stole the show later, so
I did?
Hang on.
Sorry about that, by the way.
No, it's very contentious. And
I thought it was when I got smashed.
No. But
it's not contentious for me because I'm the actual best man. So
exactly.
How would I choose? And you go through different time periods where it's just the way things go and whatever. Anyway, the official best man, Giff, was able to hop in the car and we sped down the road to the whatever the name of the place was. He got it fixed. We got back. Everything worked out just great. But it just was kind of a hectic start, and the weather was bad. And, of course, that's going to not be good for pictures and everything. And, my wife, who I wasn't seeing that day, was, I'm sure, very nervous. I did have some nerves, but not doubts or anything like that. Just nerves, more so about being like center stage. As people were coming in, and I'm sitting kind of, in the back room over here, but you can see out when people are coming in. And like these aunts and uncles and cousins that, I like them all and I've seen them lots, but they came in from out of town and this is my first time seeing them. It kind of like, holy crap, they're here for me and I gotta pull this off. So that was more of the nerves that I had because I don't like to be center stage. Although here we are running a public podcast.
Right. Top 10% podcasts in the world.
Top 10%.
Right.
And rising. I do remember. I love that. So speaking of the pictures, we also got our photographer. Well, that was through you. Did we all three have the same photographer?
We did. We did all three have.
And I think you had him first, Pete. Is that correct?
I believe we did. Yes, because we had started. We had been engaged longer.
Yes,
and you'd been engaged planning. Forever. Which, by the way, that photographer reminded me so much of Roy Wally. And I could not stop. I could not stop. A little
remembrance of him, just barely, but I can see it from what I remember.
It was perfect, but you
saved the day on that too, because you guys maybe don't remember or maybe do, but we had picked an original photographer and had engagement pictures taken at Minnehaha Falls, and these two people ended up being on the news. Like, so long after that, we're like, "Where are our pictures? What are our pictures?" And they had said they lost them, and it was all screwed up. And we ended up going, like, we wrote these letters to the Better Business Bureau and had all these problems. and they wrote back a letter calling us sad people who were trying to, like, I don't even know what they were accusing of us, because what were we going to get out of it?
You are sad people, though. He nailed that one.
But it was so funny because at that same exact time, there was actually a news segment on the Channel 5 News about this couple and this studio and how they had been scamming people and, like, took off and left town. And so we were not crazy. They did screw it up bad, but we ended up, and no, because the thing is, we had the shortest engagement. So finding a photographer at that late time after we already had one wasn't going to be an easy thing to do. But luckily, your guy was available, and again, it just all worked out.
He was fantastic.
Yeah. And Kim looked beautiful. I mean, I love our pictures. I can still picture those. The two maybe best memories of the reception afterwards were that GIF, as the best man, you gave a wonderful toast. You talked about how I engaged or asked Kim to marry me, and you gave a great speech referencing things in there that were funny, but yet, right on point.
Throw that in there. Tell everyone about how you asked the big question.
Okay.
I like that story.
I'll try to just keep it quick here. So we went to Minnehaha Falls for those pictures because that's where we got engaged. So we went there. I had gone to work in the morning in the summer. Kim had the day off. And I told her I wanted to go into work for the morning, even though I usually would never want to do that. The reason why is because I had to go set them things up. And so I came back home. She was expecting me. We were going to go on a picnic, but I used that morning to go set some things up. We went and had a picnic at Minnehaha Falls. And I gave her... Well, how did she get to my car? I gave her... What was the first clue? Do you remember? I don't even remember it all now.
I don't.
I gave her a clue. And the clue led her... We were down at the picnic. The clue led her to go to my... it was my car key. It was in the picnic. And she had to go open the trunk. And in the trunk was my golf bag, which is always in the trunk. Because
you left her a note that said, "Look in the tunk."
The tunk. And
that's from a Simpsons episode, by the way. Never mind. Go ahead.
When she opened it and opened up where the golf balls are, all of them I had written on one. I mean, some of them said "will," some of them said "you," and they all spelled out "Will you marry me?" And then right there in the parking lot, I got down on my knee and asked her, and we cried, and she said yes, and it was great. So,
oh my God,
that's beautiful. Where'd you get all those golf balls from?
From you. That's right, and that was his speech. He referenced how he gave me the balls to do this. So.
Right. I said he didn't, but he didn't have the balls.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
But as good as your speech was, then a little bit later, Pete and his wife Jenny step up, and they take the mic, and they just bring the house down. They took a Cinderella children's book, and they changed it to Kimarella, my wife's name being Kim. And they rewrote the whole book and added, like, the story of us, going back all the way to, like, high school stuff of me and Pete, because Kim and Jenny were also high school friends. So, and they just, it was fantastic. It was witty. People were just laughing. And then we got to keep the book and everything, so we got to read it again after, because, we could have easily, like, gotten so caught up and just kind of forgot most of it on the spot there. But the book was wonderful. It was a great little keepsake, and we really loved that you guys did that, because you were obviously so important to us getting together.
Give Jenny more of the credit on
that,
because she did the writing, and that was all her. I just helped read it when we were up there, because we went back and forth. And I might have helped proofread it a little bit, but
well,
she
you
was,
had to help with it because she wouldn't
she
know
was
about
the
my
instigator.
love for Debbie Gibson in middle school and things like that. You had
Oh,
to give her
I
some-
forgot that was in there.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Anyway,
maybe we should read
last-
that on air next on a secret episode. Or
the last
something.
thing I'll end this with is, so we had a great dance. It was all fun and everything. But so this is 3 years after Closing Time by Semisonic came out, and we've referenced them multiple times, how big of fans we are, and we all love that song.
We just
And
got
so-
a comment from Dan Wilson yesterday.
That's right,
on
Dan
Twitter.
Wilson. That was so cool, on Twitter.
Yep. He replied to me.
But anyway, we had asked our DJ to play that song to end the night, and we thought it would be fitting. Maybe it's cliche, whatever, but at the time it was pretty much, kind of nothing big deal. But as we did that, all of our group of friends just kind of spontaneously formed this big circle. We all put our arms around each other, and we all just sat there in a big circle, arm in arm, and sang and danced together. And then, you guys maybe will mention, that became a tradition, and it all started there, and it was just fantastic. So
Yes.
it was a great day, and that is the story of my wedding in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Who got married next?
Well, I think I did.
So speaking of that, we should say Pete was engaged the longest by far, then
Yep.
Gifford, and then I was the shortest. But I got married first, and then Gifford, and then Pete got married last.
Yeah.
Right. So I stayed in the correct order. Is what I,
Well, that's
I
true.
was
You're in the
going
middle
up.
both ways.
So I got married 5 weeks after Brad, May 12th of 2001. And unlike Brad, with his weather, I had a perfect day. It was a gorgeous, sunny May Saturday. I remember we stayed. So our reception was at a hotel, in a hotel ballroom, which was nice, because then everybody coming into town could stay at the hotel or one close by, so nobody was, drinking and driving or whatever after the reception. But so me and the wedding party stayed in the hotel the night before. So that was great. Went to the groom's dinner the night before and then stayed in the hotel. So we're all together. I just remember I couldn't sleep that night. I was so excited. Unlike Brad, I like being the center of attention. I married a woman who
Yes, you are much more comfortable with
And
it,
how-
as is your wife.
And my wife is much more comfortable being the center of attention. She was eating that up all day. So get up first thing in the morning and have to head out for pictures. Pictures were, gorgeous outside. Everything went well there. But a lot like Brad, to me, the awesomeness of the day revolved around everybody coming in to see you and your, bride to be on that day. It was high school friends, college friends, my family, her family. It was just so wonderful to have all of those people together in one place for that day. So as far as the wedding went, I wasn't nervous. I didn't have butterflies. I was just so excited to have everybody there. I love big family get-togethers. And then to have, the friends there on top of it was just amazing. My brother was my best man. Brad was in the wedding party as well as one of the groomsmen. And then of course, we had the dance and reception and dance. That was a lot of fun. We of course closed it out again with closing time at the end. One of the things I did like about our wedding was that so you go to these reception halls and they have a minimum price on what they're going to charge. So we had our guest list and we did the dinner and all the stuff that was included, and they were like, well, you have X amount of money left over from the minimum. And we're like, okay, so what do we do with that? So we had sandwiches brought out at like 10:30 at night during the reception when everybody's hungry, everybody's been dancing like crazy. So that was awesome. I remember we had the DJ and we went through like our gifts and took cash out to see if the DJ could play longer. to kind of keep the party going. And
That's
then
good.
to top it off, because I was basically just working the whole room, trying to get around to everybody while my wife, Courtney, was out on the dance floor. She was dancing with everybody. So I wasn't doing a whole lot of the eating at the reception or anything like that, or at the dance. So when we got up to our hotel room after the night was through, my mom had gone in there and she'd left us a picnic basket. And that was wonderful because I was absolutely starving.
Oh, how cute.
So that was kind of a nice way to cap off the evening. But it was just a wonderful, wonderful night. So that was a wonderful day. So those are some of the memories I had of my wedding day. Pete?
Add to the list of the many things that I have in common with Brad, and it's that that the weather was crappy on our wedding day as well. It was raining pretty hard that morning.
It actually got better though, didn't it?
It did get better later in the day. It was still kind of soggy in the afternoon. It did stop raining, I think, probably about during the wedding. But in any event,
we stopped at like Lake Calhoun or something, and at that time
we
it was.
We did. It was
you
still cloudy, but we
with like wearing raincoats and stuff. Now I remember that too. So
right, exactly. We, as I mentioned briefly in the last episode, we got married like right after 9/11. It was 11 days after 9/11, so there was a lot of tension in the air because of that. But it was a great day. I just remember the happiest moment of the day was actually the moment that I saw her for the first time, because it was when we were, before we were taking pictures and everything, but then I had to close my eyes and everything and turn around and then see her for the first time, and just how beautiful she looked. And it was amazing. And just that feeling. I remember during the ceremony itself. And
she looked at you and thought, what have I done?
Oh, Brad, why?
That's right. She still thinks that every single day.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's probably accurate. Anyway,
no, it's
during the ceremony itself, I remember I put the ring on the wrong, or I offered up the wrong hand. I had offered up just, crazy. I wasn't thinking. I had offered up the wrong hand, my right hand, instead of the left hand, which was a problem because your finger size is different. Your right hand is actually bigger, and the ring wasn't fitting, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't fitting, and it got stuck, and I couldn't figure it out. And then, so then I just had to deal with it. Nobody else really noticed it during the ceremony, but it was like I had to sit there for the rest of the ceremony with it like halfway. Hand? Well, we couldn't figure out why it was fitting. She didn't figure out why it wasn't going all the way on. And then we figured out afterwards, and I actually had to go right after the ceremony. Nobody knew it, but like when we walked out, I had to go straight to the bathroom, put soap on it to like lubricate it to get the ring off, and then I had to put it on the other hand. But it was all so fast and nobody noticed it. As good, Brad, as the best man speech was at your wedding, I'll have to say that the best man speech at my wedding was even better.
Even after I just made a bad joke, he still...
No, it's fine. But that's because I did have Brad as my best man, and it was just an amazing speech, and I'll never forget that. And it was great. We actually had our reception. As you said, Brad, we took photos at the Sculpture Gardens on the way back. It was my dad had a camper, and so we loaded everybody up on this camper and drove around the cities and drove to the Sculpture Gardens, and that's where we took a whole bunch of photos after the ceremony, because we actually had our reception at the Minnesota Zoo, which is completely opposite end of town from where the ceremony was. The Minnesota Zoo we thought was really cool because we were able to have our reception where the aquarium is. And so the head table, you had dolphins behind us at the head table. Of all the places we looked at, it was really reasonably priced. So you would have thought, well, to get that, dolphins and everything, it'd be more expensive. But it was right there with everything else. So that's what we do.
It's unique. To serve dolphin at the reception.
They weren't they delicious though?
Very fresh. Very fresh.
And then, Brad, like you said, we finished with closing time, and it was the exact same thing where everybody had their arms around each other, and it was just a great day.
I think we did that at no less than like 10 or 12 weddings over the course of like 3 or 4 years.
Yes, yes, it was amazing. So,
sorry, Pete, go ahead.
No, that was the day. I'm done.
Brad, I had one other memory from your wedding. Not just the vest, but I thought we left the rings at your house.
Oh my God, did we?
I thought we had to go back to your house and get the rings because was Melissa doing your
Yeah, she was doing the flowers in her house.
She was doing the flowers. I remember seeing her at your place. I think we had to go back to your house and grab the rings too.
Wow, you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah,
you complete me. You both do.
Forever.
None of these would have been pulled off without the whole team involved.
Yeah, takes a village.
But speaking of that, so we're gonna wrap this episode up when we're done in a positive way by talking about what we all did on our honeymoon too. So stay tuned to find out about our honeymoon trips. But speaking of your honeymoon, we all maybe went to some exotic locations. Maybe there were other people around. We've all been very happily married now for 20 years. But again, this show is all about temptation. So in 2001, right before we got married, it came out in January, Temptation Island appeared on Fox. And it wasn't just me that liked it. My wife was like all in. She watches The Real Housewives of Orange County and Beverly Hills, and she used to watch Vanderpump Rules. Like, she is just obsessed with those kinds of shows. And she loves the dating ones too. And I usually like a lot of those and get sucked into those as well. So I don't really remember exactly why we were so interested at this time, because we weren't watching much reality TV. First of all, there wasn't as much yet, but we weren't watching Survivor or anything like that. But we are suckers for some trashy TV, and this one really caught our attention. And we started watching it when it premiered, and we loved it. And we were hooked from episode 1 on. And when it came back, like whatever it was now, 2 or 3 years ago, we couldn't believe it. And what was the best part? It's the same host, Mark Wahlberg, not the Mark Wahlberg, not Marky Mark.
No, I got that written down. I was disappointed when I saw Mark Wahlberg come out. Anyway, go on.
But it's the same show, the same host. It's basically the same concept. You stick with what works. And these new seasons were just fantastic. And I know you got into it, Giff. Have you watched any of the new ones, or are you planning to?
No, I'm not planning on watching them. I'm not a huge reality TV guy, but I did watch.
Pete saw a little bit of one.
I saw a little bit of one.
Sure did.
Anyway, if you watched as much as you did, you know what it's all about. But it's just fun. And, I don't think you'd want to watch them all in a row. But, when they come out once every year and you got that break in between, it's exciting to then watch the new season when it comes back. Yeah. So, as I was thinking of things to pick for this year, and this show had just come back and we were watching it, it was actually, we had done a previous Lost 2000 episode. And when I was doing my research for that one, I discovered that this show premiered in 2001, because I thought it came out in 2000, but it actually came out in the winter season part after January. So I made a mental note that I got to talk about this in 2001. I didn't know I was going to pick it, but I knew it had to be part of my choices for stuff. And once I thought more about it, and then we watched these new seasons, I'm like, well, this is just too important to us. We just love this stuff. So it's going to be my pick. And we can bring in other reality stuff, and everybody watches some kind of trash probably, and you can relate to it however you want to. So that's why I picked it. And you guys had your first exposure. Pete, what'd you think? What was your overall thoughts? So I should explain first. Sorry. I only had you guys watch one episode required, but in that one episode, you get the full gist of the show. Gifford went on to finish it all from that first season, but Pete's seen the one. Quick rundown of the show, I should say.
Yes.
If you've never seen Temptation Island. So 4 couples who are considered at a crossroads where they're either going to get married or break up. What are they going to be in it for the long haul, or are they just not right for each other? And they choose to go on Temptation Island. And when they go to this island, wherever it is, the last season was fantastic.
Belize. This was in Belize, right?
The last newest season was fantastic because it was in Maui, and we had actually it was airing while we were in Maui, so that was just really cool, the scenery. But they go to this island, they go to this private resort, and when they get there, there are like 12 singles of each sex there waiting, 12 boys and 12 girls. And they get like one little last night to say goodbye, and then for the next 2 weeks or so, the 4 guys are living in this resort with the 12 single girls, and then at the other resort, the 4 girls have left their partners, and they are living with the 12 single guys, and they go on dates, and the singles are all there to tempt them. And the singles, by the way, have been specifically chosen on their questionnaires to specifically match up and try to tempt the people who have been picked as the couples too. So they're not just some like good-looking people. They're good-looking, of course, but they're picked.
Yes, they're like supermodels and everything, and they're trying to.
And at the end of the 2 weeks, they have to decide: are we going to stay together? Have I found somebody new that I want to go home with, or are they going to just break up and that's that, and realize that it wasn't right?
And then they throw in these little wrinkles too. It's like any of these reality shows. Like for one, you can block you can block your one of the singles from dating your partner, right?
So when they first introduce them, the couples are together, meeting all 12 of each of the others, and then the girl could go pick one of the guys that she thinks looks like is going to be a problem and block her, and likewise they can all do that. Now that's one thing I wrote down, that they don't do that anymore. In these newer seasons, that's something that I noticed that they stopped doing. So when I saw this, I made a mental note of that was something that they've changed a little bit.
Well, shortly into this season, the guys proposed to remove the blocks. That might be a reason why, because the contestants themselves, the people, the guys that were in the relationships, said at one of their little meetings, "Hey, we should propose to the girls to remove the blocks. We'll remove the blocks for them and kind of move forward from there." So maybe that's one of the reasons they don't do the blocks anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you're there to be completely tempted, you shouldn't have that restriction. I mean, if that's the whole point of the show, then you should that they should not be doing that.
What I didn't get is the block is that you can't date that person. Like they go out on dates or whatever. But you're still talking and you're still living with these people, right? Basically in the same resort. And so
you can't
it's like,
form
what
a strong of a
difference
connection piece. It's all about connection and personal growth.
Good God.
Yeah, it's just you're not allowed to go out on a date with them. So you go out on a date for the day. I mean, everybody's seen these reality shows, The Bachelor or whatever, where they go on fantasy dates or whatever.
And the dates, of course, are more private than just hanging out at the house, where you can talk to them, but everybody else is around. So it has a little bit of an impact, but you're right. They could still go spend the night together if they chose to.
And some other wrinkles that they throw in. It's like at the end of this episode, it's like, we will be showing your significant other the video clip of what your date said about how the date went. And so it's like,
so most episodes end with a bonfire, and at the bonfire they get to see a unedited clip, which is always out of context. Sometimes it's pretty accurate, but sometimes it's completely not at all really what you see in the clip, but it's always designed to make them think the worst, basically.
Right.
And so they get to see what their partner did on their date, a little clip of it, but they'll always pick the juiciest part to show them. And so sometimes that really wasn't a big deal, but it looks bad. And sometimes it is bad.
Right.
But you had the choice. So like one night the guys would get the choice to watch the clip or not. So if a guy said, "I'm not going to watch the clip," then when they go to the women and have the bonfire, then that partner is not allowed to watch the clip.
That's also changed. I don't think
and the other way they did it was if you watched the clip, then your partner was required to watch.
Yeah. So as you're making your choice, if you had the first choice, then you had to decide, do I want them to see what I did, and so on. So it's a really thought-provoking show, man. I mean, it's a lot.
But you don't know what clip that they're going to see, right? No, and so you don't know what the girl said.
But if you did something bad on your date, you can assume they're probably going to see that if you leave it open for them to see.
Right, but you
On the other hand,
right.
On the other hand, the singles, let's say it from a guy's point of view with a single, significant other, goes both ways. But the girl that you went out with, she is playing the game to try and lure you away. So she's probably going to say the worst to try and, piss off your girlfriend. So
the singles are very unpredictable. They're a power keg.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't put a bunch of nuns and monks on the show by any stretch.
That's a show. We just came up with an idea for a new show, Nuns and Monks,
Nuns and Monks Island
on Fox.
What I noticed too about this is there weren't as many episodes as I remembered. Now there's like 10 to 12. It's a little more drawn out. What I noticed watching these first episodes from back then is they're so fast paced. Like there's so much that happens in an episode, and the dates just cut back and forth from one person to another. It's hard to keep track of what's really going on.
I thought it was hard to follow. Yes.
And the newer ones, they stretch it out. It's a little easier to follow. So that was one thing I noticed. But you noticed that too, even though you didn't see the new ones. That's interesting.
Yeah, there was quite a bit.
Well, I mean, I just thought that of the show. Sorry, Gifford, but it was it was. I thought the same thing and had it written down. It was hard to follow because they were just bouncing around quite a bit.
A lot of bouncing around.
A lot of bouncing.
So, like, I had to write down like the names of the couples. I had to write down like the names, age, and
introduce us to the contestants.
Oh, okay. Well, here we go. We got Kaya and Valerie have been together for a year and a half. Tahid and
Waitasi.
Tasani, what is it?
Waitasi
have been together for 5.5 years.
Although there's a lot more to say about this couple.
Yes.
They got kicked off the show.
Andy and Sharon are together for 5 years now, and Billy and Mandy have been together for a year and a half. So they're throwing in with 13 singles. So I didn't quite get them all because they don't always show the person's name, but I got Charlie, who's 28, is a talent agent. Sean, 23,
you're
is
going to name all the singles?
Oh yeah, why not? Okay. Well, here, let me just put it this way. So of the male singles, one of them, Evan, 28, is an actor/model. Okay.
There's a lot of models and actors because they're all aspiring actors. That's why they're on the show.
Right, but there's one guy who's a actor/model. On the other side, for the single women, there's a doctor/Playboy model.
Playboy model. Yep. That was the one that stood out to me too.
There's the current Miss Georgia USA. There's a Perfect 10 model. And there's also another woman, Lola, who's the first girl to go, and she's also a model. So I think the women are getting the short end of the stick with their single guys, and So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that a lot of these women were, models.
But then you kind of brought up there too, got kicked off. So the singles also have to they can be removed. The men can decide at certain points they get a chance to kick off a single that they're not vibing with or that they don't think is doing anything for them, and likewise the women or the men can pick off a girl. So the singles are kind of fighting for their spot on the show at the same time.
Right. So they're trying to make a connection in order to stick around. So yeah, they kick off one each day. Is it? Do they kick one off every day?
That changes really from season to season. But
wouldn't there be strategy involved there too? And that if you are overly tempted by one of the girls, you like her too much.
Yeah.
Wouldn't then you want to kick her off to get?
Yes, that can happen too.
Well, if you're looking to stick with your current partner.
Yeah. Sure.
So I mean there's all different reasons why they get sent home, and that can be one of them too.
So as Pete talked about earlier, Tahid and Waitasi were removed from the competition because it came to light that they have a son together, which I thought was hilarious because now the producers of the show wouldn't want to tear a potential family apart, but they're more than happy to tear apart couples that have been together for a year and a half.
And that happened pretty early on, like in the third or fourth episode, and it was a big controversy. So I read some about that afterwards too, and apparently there might be a lot more to that story. Tahit and Waitasi. Well, first of all, one of the things I read actually said that he was married to a different person at this time, and I don't know if that ever got.
Oh, really?
But like actually married to somebody else. And then he had 2 other kids to that person.
Oh wow! Plot twist.
But they also sued the show because they claimed that they did know about the kid and they encouraged them to keep it quiet. And they changed their mind and did this later on, and that they were not informed of that. So they were not upset. I don't know how the lawsuit turned out, but on their side of the story is that was not a secret, and that it wasn't okay that way. They claim, or one of the claims anyway, is the reason they were picked in spite of having a kid is that, so there were only like 250 couple applicants for this show, which is actually a pretty small number compared to most shows. And they wanted, a diverse cast, and this was the African American couple, and they wanted them on there to represent that, and that they were willing to overlook that to get them on the show, and then they turned the tables and blindsided them after it started. So I don't know what all is really true, but that's all the stuff I read about Tahit and Waitasi.
And this couple is absolutely perfect for the show because, like, they're vindictive towards each other.
Oh, she was mad. She went on a date with a guy on the first day, and she was just not interested. She was not happy to be there.
No, Sean, the massage therapist, was not a big. I think one of them said like he looks perfect, and then he opens his mouth.
Oh, well, I have some quotes written down, and one of the quotes is the girls kept him around when they were picking off who to keep. Only because they wanted to keep him as their token hot guy to keep their boyfriends jealous, because if he was there, they would be intimidated by him. So they didn't like him. They didn't think much of him, but they wanted the hot guy there to keep that visual appearance.
Right.
These are the same girls who also made a pot of money to try to see who could get the first of the partners to cheat. And then the winner would get the pot of money. So
the women did that. Yeah, the single women.
They were definitely up to some tricks.
Right. Well, and that was the one thing that I thought was interesting. It was they would show clips of like the women who are in the relationships talking about like, well, you know what women are like, you know the kind of crap that they're pulling over there, and like they showed clips of like the women breaking into the bungalows of the guys in the middle of the night and like, jumping into bed with them, kind of being funny and like hiding in their bathroom. And
again with the bouncing.
Whereas like the women were talking about how, they go to those bonfires and they would come back distraught because they'd see something on a video clip that they didn't like. And they'd come back to the resort, and these guys were more like confidants with them. Like they were their friends trying to console them. And
the single guys?
The single guys were like so it was like they were looking at the guys not only as necessarily temptations, but also as kind of guys that they could cry on their shoulder when they were.
That's how they get those deep. That's how they get you.
Well, it was kind of funny that's they looked at.
Speaking of deep, there was a couple quotes that I wrote down that I enjoyed. So I can't remember which guy it was, but one of the couple guys on his first date decided he wanted to rate the legs of his date, and he's like, yeah, she's probably an 8.5, but my girlfriend, she's like a 9. And then the other guy said, yeah, but I'm really a booty man, so it's just really. And then the other guy, he wanted to be so serious and artistic, and he described his girlfriend underwater like she was like a mermaid or something. They weren't the brightest bulbs.
Was that Kyle? Is he the same one who said that he looked up and it looked like a bird underwater?
I don't remember which one, but that would make sense.
Manta ray. It was like, come on, dude. Not the brightest bulbs. A lot of these guys, either the contestants or the singles.
Speaking of the bonfire, I thought it kind of funny to see the old technology too, because now they just like hand them an iPad and.
Right.
But like it was almost like a portable DVD player with wired headphones they had to plug in. It was just kind of clunky. And
I was laughing at the same thing
20 years ago. The bonfires, by the way, weren't nearly as dramatic in this episode that I watched as they are now. They weren't that juicy, so kind of a letdown.
Well, it didn't seem like there was a lot of juiciness in this series.
No, it got off to a slow start. I mean, we'll get to what happened to the couples too here at the end, but
the one thing I don't understand is why you would ever watch the video clip if you.
That was my question about the bonfire. Would you choose to watch if you were there?
Never.
I don't think I could resist. I don't. I have to. I'm too curious.
No, it depends because it's the trade-off. Like if I did something stupid and then the girl's going to talk about it, I don't think I would. No, because
given
then
the choice,
given the fact that then your woman's will see it, your significant other will see the other video. I don't think I would do it. I don't know. It just depends on how it all went.
And it had no impact on whether she would see it. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think I could resist. I'm too.
I wouldn't, because Sharon.
You're too possessive.
Sharon was one that talked about this, and I completely agreed with her. She said, no matter what they show you, it's going to be out of context, and it's going to be meant to drive you crazy, and elicit a negative response from you, and try to get you to do things.
But some people just can't resist.
There's no way I would watch the clip. Well, there's no way I would go on this show.
Well, that's a question coming later here.
Never.
Is there any situation where you could see yourself as a couple being interested in this?
No.
Was there any point in your life?
You had that.
I think
maybe when I was way younger.
I think the only way I would be interested in going on this show is, one, I'd have to be a lot better looking to even get picked. But two is if you were like right on the cusp of like breaking up with your girlfriend and you're like, hey, I got an opportunity to go hang out with a bunch of hot women on an island. That would be like if you were ready to
push it over the top.
Or she's about to break up with you, then you're like, hey, sweetie, why don't we try this? And then,
I've always wondered what the conversation was that led to the couples.
And then if she's all like, yeah, let's do it, then you're...
What about those couples that applied and didn't get on? They still had to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, awkward. Now what do we do?
What about if you were a young single and never married yet? Would you be interested in being a single after seeing this?
I would be more likely to do that again if I was, better looking than I am. But, if I looked like one of those guys, maybe I would. But getting back to the earlier question, if I went, assuming that I was just one of the married guys that's on that island, I would probably be the one that's just sitting in my room surfing my phone the whole time or looking at my iPhone. Because I just would not fit in with that group at all, and it would just be very awkward.
We are not like those guys.
Right. I don't think we have the personalities.
That's what I had written down, though, in the sense that if the producers really wanted to try to get me to cheat, then the advice to them would be to not get supermodels. It would be to get regular women that I would be able to connect with and just have fun with and be comfortable around. Not that I would anyway. I would rather, if I'm going to go 2 weeks to Belize, and you might say there's a preposterous statement, but I would rather just go to Belize with my wife for 2 weeks than spend it with 12 supermodels.
Yeah, you're married right now. I would hope you'd say that.
Well, I know, but
one thing I did like was Andy. That was kind of his game. It seemed like he was going with is he wasn't necessarily going after people he found attractive. It seemed like he was trying to get just through this. So he's like, well, I'll pick a girl who I think I wouldn't necessarily be interested in, but I think she'll be fun. Like, I want to go on a date and just go have fun.
And that's the thing. It's like Survivor. I mean, there is a strategy to it, whether it's stupid or not. Everybody's got their own strategy involved, and that's what makes it fascinating to watch. For me, I mean, not for everybody.
Well, and you could tell as the show went on, Valerie, who is Kaya's significant other, like, she just got so depressed and despondent, and she didn't want anything to do with anything. She didn't want to be in this thing anymore. She just wanted to get it over with and get back with her guy. And while he's on the other side of the island, just like, I'm experiencing everything I can, and I'm just looking for connections, and this is what we talked about beforehand, and I'm just going to do it all. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just, so funny. Two sides going with those two.
Couple more things. One other question I had here as I was putting this together is, what percentage of this do you actually think is real? Like, how many people, like, they're a legit couple, or they really care about this, or they're just there to try to get famous, or, you know, and how much does does Fox, in this case, edit it so that it's so out of context and that it's not even realistic to what even took place there? How much of this show in particular would you even consider real as far as reality
100%.
television?
Well, and for me,
What'd you
that's
say,
why I
Pete?
don't.
I said 100%.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No.
This is the reason I really don't care to watch a lot of reality TV, because it's so highly edited. So
Yes.
like in one of the last episodes, they talked about the couples talked about one of the worst parts of the show was not being on the island. It was watching the show back when they,
Mhm.
you know, when they were back home.
Because then you got to go watch it after you've decided
Right.
maybe you're going to stay together. Then you go home and this is airing, and you got to watch it.
Well,
Like
and
I'll revisit all the.
I mean, you don't have to
Whatever.
watch it, but
right. But Sharon said that Andy was not portrayed properly. Like, she said that the way they edited stuff for him was unfair to him. And so, to your point, how much of it was edited to just cause conflict or cause drama,
and
that's a big part of it. It's also the fact that a lot of these people are there just so they can have their 15 minutes. They just want to be on television.
well, and
They wanna-
especially
That's what
the
bothers me the
something
most.
else.
And that's why I think the singles are the worst part, because I mean, why would you want, if you're truly there to look for love, you're a single looking for love. Why would you want to go do that with 4 guys or 4 girls who are currently in a committed relationship? I mean, you can go out and try to find that anywhere. The singles all just seem like completely, you know, they're just completely fake, and they're just there to be on TV and try to be famous, and that gets frustrating, of course.
Well, and let's say you are there to legitimately, for real, find a mate. Well, that would mean that the person you're with now cheated on. That's
how it started
with you, and that's how you started your relationship. So what's going to stop that person from doing the exact same thing down the road? Like,
great point.
I just don't.
Yeah.
This is a tough one for me. It's like you say, it's trashy fun, but the whole concept of it is just.
Speaking of the frustration or the how much is real. So the latest season here, it was edited to a point where I got frustrated. Like, I would talk to the TV and get mad because there were certain characters who were legitimately saying like good stuff about their partner and like really showing what they're going through, and then they get to the bonfire and they would show that other person none of that, of course, just the most out of context thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you know, at some point, can't you show them a little bit of both? Does it always have to be the worst case scenario?
Yes.
If you give them both, it probably would screw with their head even more. Because then it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
True.
Right, but that's not what the audience wants to see.
I actually do, because I got frustrated this year.
I think that
is what gets people coming back and trying to demonize somebody, or, you know, you're mad at this person, so you're going to keep watching. Oh, I can't believe this person did such and such and da-da-da. So I'm going to come back next week and watch again. You know, so it's just as much, you know, viewers liking the characters that come back, but also hating other characters that make them come back.
Oh, yeah.
So they got to have the drama. But speaking of like the overproduced bullcrap, so the episode in which they're going to come back together, the couples come back together at the bonfire, they were talking to Sharon, and Shannon tells Mark, the host, that she's looking forward to continuing her relationship with Tom. Tom's the guy she spent the fantasy date on at the end.
Oh yeah.
But then she still ends up with Andy.
Well, so, and they got engaged.
They got engaged and married, and it's like, why put that in there? Like, that was just the teaser to get you through the commercial break. It's just so overproduced.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, she had no, you know, and honestly, the way it all came together, I thought she should have ended up with Tom, because Andy was just such a pile of crap.
Well, so speaking of how it all ended and what their final decisions were, what made this season not very juicy, all 4 couples at the time chose to stay together, actually. None of them ended up leaving. However, Andy and Shannon, who got married, they're no longer married. I found a thing about them. So that did not last, but they did get married, and it did seem like a fairy tale at first, but...
Right, but again, how much of that's real? Did they get married on TV just so they could have that
who knows?
Extra kick from, whatever.
And Billy and Mandy, who stayed together, they were from Atlanta, I believe, if I got the right couple.
Yes.
He moved to LA and lived with one of the other couples from the show while he was trying to become an actor. And they never said that they broke up. They said they had a passionate long-distance relationship, but I'm guessing they didn't end up for the long haul. But he actually moved and lived with, it must have been Kaya and Valerie would have been the other one. Unless it was Andy and Shannon. I don't know, whatever.
It might have been Andy and Shannon.
And then Tahid and Waitasi actually on the show looked like they were going to stay together and try to work it out too. But that's the one I found the least on afterwards, because other than all that other weird stuff that I found. So I don't know if any couples made it all the way, but they all left the show actually together.
Right. Yeah, which again, like
usually there's about 2 and 2, or 1 and 3. It's rare that all 4 stay together. That might have been the only time, actually. I don't even remember.
Right. Yeah, it didn't end very dramatically.
But speaking of this year, one of the guys had met a girl. One of the couple guys met a girl, one of the singles, and had sex with her right away. And then he got in with another one, and they ended up having a threesome, and it's all on camera. They show him getting in, and they showed all this to his couple, to his partner, and so that's what she saw, which was not out of context. That was good. So they definitely broke up, and that was kind of a fun, juicy one to watch because he was so clueless. He kept saying how they went into it, no rules. We got no rules. Yeah, okay, come on, guy.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of like Kaya. Because to me, Kaya, so he went on his last fantasy date. Who did he go with? But I was sure that he was going to. Oh, I think it was Allison. I was sure that he was going to have sex with her, and they never really said if they did or didn't. But it was to me, he was just going around doing whatever he felt like. So I couldn't believe that he went with Valerie. Valerie obviously wanted him back worse than anything. But yeah, he kind of sounds like the guy from the season you're watching now, where he was just doing whatever he felt like. And Billy and Mandy, those two are just a hot mess as well. I can't believe that they decided to stay together. That was just absolutely crazy to me.
It's fascinating.
But
so I think we can probably segue to our other questions on our list here. So one of my last questions was, how do you define the difference from trashy TV to regular reality TV? Is there reality TV to you that's not trashy? Are there certain shows or things that you think are really good and maybe wholesome? And then obviously some that aren't. Any things you put together as far as different types of shows that fit into those categories?
For me,
go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say, for me, the difference is they're reality shows that push the boundaries of human morality, this one does. And there are other shows like Survivor. Is a game. I never really watched Survivor, but from what I understand, it's basically a game, and there are strategies and stuff like that. But it's not pushing any moral grounds. Maybe it is, but there's a lot of reality shows that don't really fall under the category of trashy TV for me. And so I guess that would be the difference.
Good definition.
Yeah. I have nothing else to add. That's perfect, Pete.
Actually, I'm pretty good with that right there.
Thank you.
Of course, the ones that I gravitate to are much more the trashy ones.
Those are the ones that people
I
like to watch.
They're just fun, yeah. They're
juicier.
They're mindless fun, much like the Pop Culture Yearbook podcast.
Well, we do kind of push the boundaries of human morality a little bit.
A little bit.
So this is obviously probably my biggest guilty pleasure trashy show. Do you guys have a show like this that you do watch that you're willing to admit? Not exactly like this, but a show that you watch all the time that you're not very proud of.
the one that I had under this one, it's I feel like I'm going to have to take a shower after I bring this up, but it's not one that I watch anymore, or it's not on anymore. But we did watch all the time the first 2 seasons, and I hate myself for doing it in retrospect. We used to watch The Apprentice all the time.
Oh my God, you did.
Yes.
I did not know that.
And that was on that was borderline trashy. Just because obviously it was over the top. And at that time, you never, ever would have thought that Trump was going to be president. I mean, it was not a realistic thought. And it's like, okay, it's entertaining for a game show, but it's not so entertaining when you're talking about the president of the United States. And so, but yeah, we did watch it. We also used to watch Naked and Afraid we watched that for probably the first full season. And
I've never watched that. Is that kind of trashy, or is it just?
It actually is not as trashy as the name implies, even because they're naked, but you never actually see anything, of course. But right. But it's a survivor type show where they're just trying to survive in the wild, and that's the thing.
But they're naked all the time.
That's what. Yeah, they aren't, because they are left with no clothes. They each get to choose like one thing that they get to stay that they get to have on the island with them, and it might be you can choose like a pot so you can boil water or something like that. That is the show. They are naked all the time.
How about you, Gibbs? Do you have one?
I would say the one that I'm the least proud of watching was. We watched, my wife and I, we would watch the first few seasons of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Oh, yeah, good choice.
And
I never watched that either, but.
So that was one of the shows that we would watch together. My wife does enjoy a lot more reality television than I do. So we would watch that one. The other one, and it's probably... I always make fun of it because, again, it's the idea that you're really going there to look for love, and that's The Bachelor or Bachelorette. That would be my wife's number one. She's stuck with that one.
I've never watched those either, but those are huge.
I don't think I've ever seen an episode of The Bachelor. Maybe I did. Just
lots of people I work with love those shows and talk about them all the time.
And see, that is a machine of a show because, again, this is where I get into the whole, they're not there for love, so I'm not buying it. I mean, there's like a couple couples that have gotten married and stayed together, and it's like, well, yeah, but that's the exception that proves the rule to me. Because, like, so you got these singles, and they come in, and then maybe, like, the one who doesn't get picked is the Bachelorette for the next year, and then you've got another show that I love to watch is Dancing with the Stars. That's actually my number one reality show. But then that's an ABC show, so then they'll get cast on as a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. So now you get another run on another show. Then they have Bachelor in Paradise, so now you get another run on another show. So it's just this machine of keeping these people, these hot, they're hot people in front of the camera for seasons at a time. So they just keep recycling them. So I kind of like, this is just a bunch of junk. But yeah, so The Bachelor would probably be the other guilty pleasure one, I guess.
All right, so you kind of started. So we made a list of our favorite reality shows, and so you why don't you go, Giff, and complete your list?
Okay, so number 5, I had the Kardashians. 4 would be The Bachelor or Bachelorette. And then in college, I watched more MTV back then. And that's when The Road Rules was on, as well as The Real World. So I watched, I don't know, maybe the seasons while I was in college and then maybe a couple seasons after of those. And then my number one is Dancing with the Stars, kind of a, game show, but still considered, I guess, reality television. So I've watched quite a few seasons of that. Not lately, but of all the reality-based shows or game show type things, that's the one I've watched the most of. So I would say that would be my favorite.
All right, Pete.
Have you ever seen the show Cash Cab?
I have heard of it. I have not seen it.
That's a fun
Yes,
show to watch.
that is.
And I have that as my number 5. What the concept of the show is, it's a New York City cab driver that's basically the game show host, and it's real people. They'll they're just getting a cab, and it's like a 20-minute cab ride. And when you get in the car, then all these lights light up and everything. And he's like, "You're on a game show," and then he'll ask them a number of questions, trivia questions, during the car ride. So if it's a 20-minute car ride, you got that 20 minutes to answer these questions, and the more questions you get right, you win more money. And then he just hands you the money as you're leaving. And it's good trivia questions, and it's just a fun show to watch. And I like the guy too.
That does sound like something I would enjoy.
I think he also works as a stand-up comedian too.
He is.
Yeah. I haven't seen his act or anything, but it's a good show. I wasn't sure if this would be considered a reality show, but it was on, when I Googled reality shows, it showed up on multiple lists. Mythbusters is a fun show to watch, good educational show, but it's also good for adults to watch too. I enjoy that. I did have American Idol. We used to watch American Idol all the time, not so much anymore, or, as it went on, but I did used to really enjoy watching it. Have you ever seen American Pickers? That's a fun show. I thought that we used to watch.
I know of it, but I've
never watched shows before.
American Pickers is these two guys. They're from Iowa, but they drive around the country, and they just stop at like these farmhouses and places like that look like they've got all this junk in the yard or whatever, and then they go and they will buy stuff. They'll find like this antique stuff, and they'll buy it. And they appraise it and everything. So I don't know. It's just one that I like the guys. I think that the two guys on the show, they like hate each other now. They had some kind of big falling out. They don't do the show together anymore. But anyway,
so one Pete, if they happen to buy the junk and they take it with them, would they have junk in their trunk then?
They would have junk in their trunk, except they had a cargo van. That's the problem. I don't know if they really had a trunk.
Oh, that's not good.
And I really enjoyed watching the Sing Off, and I'm sad that it's not on anymore. I thought that was a good show. Ben Folds was the host of it.
Yeah,
and it was a well done reality show. It was all a cappella music. They always did a really good Christmas special. Jenny and I really enjoyed it. But it's not on. I don't understand why it didn't last longer than it did, because it was always good. I mean, there are some good acts that came out of it. Pentatonics is big now, but I don't know. I enjoyed them. And then just a couple of others that I had written down. Auction Kings was another one that we kind of got into. We did watch Queer Eye when it first came out, and The Simple Life, which could be under the category of trashy TV.
I would think so.
But we enjoyed watching it.
Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie. And they would live with this like trashy family or white trash kind of family in Mississippi or something. Anyway,
are you done?
I'm done.
All right. So I'll just start at the top. So I grouped them together. So Temptation Island, obviously, but there's two other shows. And these are the ones I can watch with my wife, and we love watching them together. That's what makes them the best. But there's a new show on Netflix called Too Hot to Handle, and there was a season last year, and a new one just came out. I bet you Courtney watches that.
I told her about it because you told me about it, but I don't know if she.
And it's just fantastic. And then I also put in Joe Millionaire from way back. That came out right after the original.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
I forgot about that one.
So I lumped those together because they were all terrible, like dating style shows, but we loved them and just couldn't get enough. Number 2, America's Got Talent. My kids and I used to watch that for like 5 years in a row. We watched every episode, and it was great to watch that with them. They've grown out of it. I don't watch it anymore because it's not very fun to watch it by yourself. But it was great. My wife would work at night on those nights, and the three of us, that was something we always watched through the summer. It's great. Number 3, I had House Hunters. Love watching that, and we watched that together too.
That's a good show.
And International House Hunters as well.
That was not as good.
Number 4, one from back around the same time period again, was Trading Spaces, which I think all of us kind of watched back then because we all had new houses and we're trying to, and they were fixer-uppers more than maybe.
Yeah.
I have a fun story about that, if you'd like me to interject it once.
Well, let me just finish. With Trading Spaces, I also lumped in, 3 years ago, there was a show called A Very Brady Renovation, where all the kids from the Brady Bunch got together with, it was two people from one of those HGTV shows,
Mm-hmm.
and they took the real Brady Bunch house that was for sale, and HGTV bought it. And that house in reality is nothing like the layout on the show.
Right. Yep.
And they renovated that house to make it into the real Brady Bunch as much as they could thing. And it was so fun to watch. And all 6 kids were on there. And that's one of my dreams now, is to go visit that house, because it's actually done, and it would be so cool to walk through it.
Well, my wife watches a show that Maureen McCormick is on now. She's got a designer with her, and they do a house renovation.
Oh, really? Well, that probably started after this, because she was obviously a big part of that. Mm-hmm. And then my number 5, this is one of the funniest shows I've ever watched. It's one that if you watch it too much, it's going to get a little old, and it had kind of a shorter life. But Billy on the Street, have you ever watched that with Billy Eichner?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Who, by the way, is from the show Park and Rec.
Nice, got it in. Good job, man.
So Billy on the Street is, it is gut-bustingly, painfully funny sometimes, and I just love that show.
For $1.
For $1. All right, and then we said at the beginning we were going to try to finish this on a nice upbeat note. So we began with our weddings, and then we talked about a bunch of bad relationships. And so we're going to finish this up by just sharing quickly what we each did on our honeymoon to wrap up the episode. Should we go in reverse order on this one?
Sure. That means I go first, right?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
So we actually kind of went on 2 honeymoons.
Of course you did.
Well, it was because right after we got married, it was in the fall, and we wanted to go on like a real honeymoon in the winter. And so I'll explain in a moment. So right after we got married, we just drove up to the North Shore at a resort called Superior Shores. And I just remember it was a beautiful resort on Lake Superior on the North Shore. And I just remember, again, it was right after 9/11, but I just remember sitting there, like how peaceful it was. And compared to everything that had been going on in the world around, it was just great to just be away and not even really think about what's going on in the outside world. Beautiful place to be, especially in the fall. That's actually one of the reasons that we got married in the fall, is because that's Jenny's favorite season, with the leaves turning and all of that kind of stuff. And so
I agree with Jenny.
We had a great, it's my favorite season too. Everything's going on in the fall. And then we actually did in February, I think it was right around my birthday, we did a cruise, which was a lot of fun. We went down, it was a Caribbean cruise. We took Norwegian Cruise Lines. It was a great time. We got to stop at a couple of islands down there, like Tortuga, St. Martin, St. Thomas, I think, and a couple of other ones like that.
Bermuda, Bahama. I want to Key Largo, Montego.
Yeah, I get it. Kokomo.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a lot of fun, but both Jenny and I kind of agree we wouldn't need to do a cruise again. It's better to do an all-inclusive resort, like at one of those places, and just stay there, not have to worry about anything. It's very, very confined if you are on a ship like that. Your room is like probably half the size of my dorm room was, and it's there's a lot of things to not like about being on a cruise. You do feel kind of confined, but it was fun. But it's just like, and then also, especially lately with like COVID and everything, to have to worry about being around all those people all the time, there's always that kind of risk too. So anyway, I digress. Let's go to Gifford.
All right. So we went on our honeymoon about a month after we got married. I started a new position with Home Depot right after we got married. Then we moved into our house 2 weeks later. So it was kind of stacked up. So we took a month in between. We flew to Cancun, was there for a week, which I absolutely enjoyed. It was in June, but obviously it's nice to go to a tropical place in the middle of winter when you live in Minnesota. But It was wonderful. We took like a day trip. We stayed at an all-inclusive resort. We took like a day trip to Chichen Itza one day. We did like a little where we were in like a thing where you had a 2-person little boat and you'd follow a bunch of other people on this tour and go out to a reef and do like some snorkeling for, an afternoon or something. That was really fun. But for the most part, we stuck around the hotel, around the resort. I loved that the hardest decision I had while I was there was whether I was going to be on the beach or be by the pool. That's, for 5 days straight or 6 days straight. That's the hardest decision you have to make. Really enjoyed that. The one thing I remember about our room that I did not enjoy was that the AC temp control didn't work. So either the air conditioning was on and you were frozen, or you turned it off and the humidity immediately entered your room and it was just uncomfortable. So that was the only thing that I remember that I didn't like about the honeymoon. But of course, the food was excellent. Drinks were aplenty, and it was just a nice, relaxing week after going through our wedding. And we had Brad's wedding right before that. I had a cousin's wedding before that I was in. So it was just a nice way to kind of unwind after all the fun craziness that we got to participate in.
Let me give you a little story about Chichen Itza that you brought you brought up. We did go to Cancun for spring break in college, and we took that same trip where we went to Chichen Itza. We happened to be there on the vernal equinox, which is a big deal because you know where I'm going with this. I probably explained it, but the pyramids, those like Mayan pyramids, were built so that on the vernal equinox, at the right time when the sun was setting, it would form a shadow that would make it look, on the side of the pyramid, that would make it look like a diamondback rattlesnake. And it was amazing. Like all of these people were there. We didn't know that when we went there. They explained that when we got there, and it was like just the perfect day to be there if you're going to go.
Yeah, that would be cool, because I remember we stayed till like sunset, and they had like the lights up, and they shown it on the pyramid, showing what that would look like. But obviously, we weren't there at the actual time. So that is really cool that you were there at the time.
It's like something you'd see out of Indiana Jones or something.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, Brad.
Are you sure? You got any more stories there, Pete?
No, I don't have any more stories at this time.
I like Pete's stories.
Oh,
thank you.
Great. Pete can spin a yarn. I am similar to GIF. So I mentioned why we picked our wedding date. We had gone through different, because we love the fall too. We actually looked into January at one point for our wedding. But I'm a teacher, and we wanted to go on a honeymoon. And during this particular year, spring break was like late. So we got married on April 7th, and spring break was the week after, April 9th then through the 13th. And so we picked that date so that we could go on a honeymoon right away. And we went to Playa del Carmen, and we flew into Cancun and had a shuttle take us down, and we stayed in an all-inclusive resort, which we had never done before at this time. We're very young. And just spent our time in the room and on the beach, and we could ride a bike into town, and we didn't go on any actual there were some of those day trips I would have wanted to do, but we weren't there that long, and we just didn't do that. But it was a lot of fun eating, and the staff was just amazing, and it was just really, really relaxing and beautiful, and so it was great. And I'm glad we were able to make all that timing worked out, where we could get that date for the wedding and then go right away on that honeymoon and do it the way you're supposed to.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Great stories, fellas.
Yeah, this was a good episode.
And we're all kicking 20 years later still.
So far, so good.
Not quite at 20
years. Hey, by the time this airs, Pete will be at 20 years.
That's true.
What's the air date?
It'll be like 2 days before or something, I think.
It'll be 2 days before.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
So maybe Pete won't make it, I guess. We'll have to update that in the next episode.
You never know. I might be tempted. I might be tempted.
You're not going to tempt me.
All right. Well, I think that will wrap up this show. What are we doing next week, Gifford?
We are going to be discussing one of the great movies of 2001.
Speaking of trashy.
Not another teen movie.
But in all the best ways.
That sounds like a fun episode. But we'll wrap up this one. Be sure to go on to Facebook, Twitter, give us some likes, give us some reviews. Apple Podcasts, starting to get some reviews there. Love to see that. And I think we'll close it with a little Preacher Row tonight. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. And start to me on my back. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared but there's nothing I can do.